when we go around, whether we drop our children off at school, go to work, go to buy our vegetables and so on, are the challenges that we can see, the challenges of traffic and water and air pollution and so on. But what is beneath those issues is really what's invisible to us, but that are the city systems by which our cities need to be run. And in the great cities around the world, those city systems run really well. And clearly, Indian cities, because we're just beginning our journey of urbanization, need to get our systems better. And that's the area that Janaagraha works on. So let me begin by giving you two, you can say, archetypes, two characters between whom, in some sense, our lives are. And one is Ganesh. You can read that. Ganesh is an auto rickshaw driver, single income, has 2 children. Look at the key indicators of his quality of life. He lives in a rental 200 square foot place. It's an informal, dense slum, next to an open drain, overflowing with garbage and sewage, has a community water tap which only comes 2 hours a day, twice a week. Family uses substandard pedestrian roads, an inconvenient city bus system to move around. The area that they live in is close to a park and a playground. In case there are any safety issues, they're reluctant to go to the police because there is a fear. And of course, when we talk about higher order things of quality of life like museums and other public amenities, there's absolutely nothing available to him. Look at the other end of the spectrum. Pradeep, who works as a senior executive in an IT company, single income again, 2 children, lives in an independent home, 4,000 square feet, upper income, planned neighborhood, maybe in Indira Nagar or something. But look at the other aspects. Has an open drain behind his house, overflowing with garbage and sewage. Has managed to de-risk himself from the water supply by having a sump and an overhead tank so that de facto gets 24/7 water supply. The family always uses private vehicles with a chauffeur-driven car. So again, no exposure to the public transport system. And like Ganesh, Pradeep's house is also close to a park and a playground, but not very many facilities. As far as security is concerned, they have a guard and they have an alarm system. And again, like Ganesh, no real access to great world-class museums or public amenities. This is very typical of the life that we live, somewhere in between these two. But look at the other end of the spectrum. 2 similar characters in New York. David, who's a taxi driver, family is double income, has 2 children. And look at his quality of life. Has a 400 square foot own home. And these are all real people, by the way. Mixed income zoned neighborhood in Brooklyn, which is just one of the boroughs of New York. Clean neighborhood, no litter on the streets, gets 24/7 water that he can open the tap and drink from. The family uses pedestrian-friendly streets and a convenient network of buses and subway systems to move around. Close to parks and playground, has no issues in reporting to the neighborhood police. In fact, there is a formal community participation opportunity and a community watch group. There's a community council in which, if David wants, he can go and engage. And then, of course, access to world-class museums and a wide variety of public spaces. Look at the similarity in the life between this man and somebody at the other end of the social spectrum, of the economic spectrum in that city. A hedge fund manager earning hundreds of thousands of dollars, but look at how they access pretty much the same kind of services, whether it's water supply, whether it's public amenities, whether it's public transport systems, choosing to go to work. Very often you would be rubbing shoulders in a Manhattan subway train with the CEOs of companies, with people who are senior executives. And that happens on a day-to-day basis. So there is a major disconnect between what we are experiencing in terms of quality of life in our cities here, where the few who are privileged are able to somehow de-risk our lives from the larger challenges that our city faces. I want to now go, this is the stuff above the iceberg, on the top, the stuff that's visible. What is beneath the iceberg? The simplest way to understand what's beneath the iceberg is to look at the organization chart of the city of New York, okay? This is the organization chart of the city of New York. There's somebody called the mayor. Look at the organization chart. I want to give you 3 examples. You can't see the text of this, but I want to give you 3 examples of what that organization chart means in terms of actual things on the ground. Let me just take traffic and transport, something that bothers us on a day-to-day basis. How does New York's organization chart address traffic and transport? Under the organization, the entire Department of Transportation reports to the mayor. The entire Department of Transportation. The entire taxi and limousine commission, which means the medallions of how many taxis should be given, what is the rate of the taxi medallion, everything is decided under the mayor's office. Look at the Department of City Planning, which determines, again, what is the way in which you will decide the traffic systems, the patterns, and so on. Look at the variety of other boards, authorities, commissions, and corporations. Collective Bargaining, Civil Services Commission, Environmental Control Board. Look at the last line of that, the Metropolitan Transport Authority, that runs the entire subway system of Manhattan, reports into the New York mayor. This is the organization chart of Bangalore. You have a city council, you have the mayor, then you have a commissioner who is appointed not by the mayor, not by the city council, but coming in from the state government, whose previous position would have been in women and child welfare, and his next position will be in sericulture. So his job here is for 2 years to be running this. Whereas in the US, in the examples I gave you, not just in US, in most countries around the world, that's a technically qualified job. Somebody who wants to run a city of 10 million people should have had a job description to say, I have run cities of 5 million, before which I ran a city of 4 million. So my career path is clearly established. Various departments under this, on the right, are all what we call parastatals, all various departments that are not reporting to the city government, but actually reporting directly in some form or the other to the state government. Let me take the same 3 examples of traffic and transport. What exactly is under the direct control of the city government? Nothing. There is an engineering department which is responsible for road maintenance. That's all that it can control. Everything else, from RTO, which gives out licenses, to the regional planning board, to traffic police, to the Bangalore Development Authority, to the BMTC, to the Bangalore Metro Rail, every one of them is a standalone agency reporting in some form or the other to the state government. There's absolutely no coordination in terms of getting traffic and transport done. Why is this important? Because it's not about individual competence, it's about institutional constraints. Our work over the last 12 years has shown us that there is a framework, and we can systematically work on putting that framework together. What does that framework contain? 4 pieces. 4 pieces of what we believe is a framework to build vibrant cities, which can benefit everybody, not just the rich, not just the middle class, but the poor and everyone. What are these 4 parts? Robust urban planning and design. You have to have great planning and design to have great cities. The second, enhanced urban capacities and resources. Management capacities, technically competent people who know how to deal. Bangalore today generates 6,000 tons of garbage. You cannot solve that unless you're technically qualified to manage that supply chain from start to finish. You need technical competencies for that, and so on and so forth for every urban challenge. Empowered representatives, that means that mayor, the Bloomberg equivalent in Bangalore, should be empowered. But we need to go beyond empowered. We need legitimate elected representatives, and Mr. Premji talked about this when the garbage crisis happened a few months ago. We, of course, want more power to be given to the municipal authorities, and a lot of people have spoken about that, 74th Constitutional Amendment, decentralization, and so on. But it's not just about giving more power. The people who are there need to be legitimate. What do I mean by that? Today, voter lists in our cities have 70% error rates. 70%. Why is it 70%? And it's not just in Bangalore, it's in Patna as well, it's in Ludhiana, it's in Pune, it's in Hyderabad. Not because, again, the system is corrupt, but the system is broken. A system that was designed for 19th century rural India, where once a year the Tehsildar could land up and verify the list because hardly anybody changed in that village. So the Tehsildar could do it part-time with the help of a few government school teachers. You take that system and you transplant it into urban India, where you have hundreds of thousands of people coming into the city and moving within the city. That system gets overwhelmed. So every year, 10%, that's our study that shows that 10% of the voters in an area actually move out every year. So imagine an assembly constituency. We're going to have elections in Bangalore in the next month. 2 lakh voters in an average assembly constituency. 20,000 people move out every year. Another 20,000 people are moving in. That means every year, 40,000 transactions have to be recorded. You can't do this with the Tehsildar coming in November, supported by a few school teachers. You need to do this on a systematic, continuous basis. This system doesn't exist today because it was not meant for urban India. So we're now working with the Election Commission to actually fix the system, In one assembly constituency in Shantinagar, our team is here, the ground team. We have invested over 100,000 man-hours, and the quality of the voter list now is 75% accurate. We are confident that in the next elections, we'll at least be 10% higher turnout than the other constituencies in Bangalore. So it will prove for once that it is not about apathetic urban Indians, it is about a bad voting system, which will then cause legitimate elected representatives to come. And the last piece of the puzzle is transparency, accountability, and participation, like we talked about. There must be an opportunity. Participation is like a Velcro. I am willing to participate if the system allows me a chance to participate. So there must be a meeting ground for the two to come together. The great cities around the world have all these four. Look at the bottom left. There's a city called Porto Alegre in Brazil. Very much like an Indian city 15 years ago, like a lot of corruption, a lot of poverty, a lot of infrastructure challenges, huge budgetary resource problems. And they, in a period of 10 years, opened up the entire budgeting system to say, why should the budget be decided just by the council? Today, 50,000 people come together in the city football stadium to hand over the people's budget to the mayor and the council. 80% of the city's budget is decided by that process. And quality of life in Porto Alegre has dramatically changed. People said initially it's only in Porto Alegre, it can't go anywhere else. It has moved across Brazilian cities. People said it's only for 1 or 2 years, it won't sustain. It is the 15th year and it's still going on. Look at other cities. I talked about New York. Look at the London transportation system. Complicated, multiple departments, tremendous capacities. The way they have built out their infrastructure, the way they're doing their interdepartmental pricing, ticketing systems, all of that. And robust urban planning and design, just in our own area in Asia, look at Singapore. They don't just release the entire landmass in one shot. They plan the city so that they say, how do we ensure that we get a reasonable amount of the city planned before new areas are opened up? Whereas you have Bangalore, 800 square kilometers, out of which 60% of the city of that 800 square kilometers is still not fully densified. And yet we're building all this expensive infrastructure, taking the city further and further away. If we did all this, and it'll take us 15 years to do it, this is the journey of lifetimes. This is not the journey of Nescafe change. We can move our city infrastructure, quality of life, from what we see today to what we see in movies. We can take our buses and move them from what these are to the kind of things that we can enjoy traveling in and leave our cars behind only for our weekend travels. We can move our slums into things that people can live with life with respect and dignity. And finally, we can do all this with each of us playing our role, each of us saying, I had a hand to play in this. This is the journey of what Janaagraha is trying to catalyze. Thank you so much.